So about 3.5 years ago, I had just started a job at a treatment center for the severely mentally ill. We treated people like schizophrenics, bipolars, people who are severe in their cases. And I was just about 2 weeks into my job, and the way that this treatment center worked was that people didn't sleep there overnight. We went and picked them up every single morning, and we dropped them off at night. And there was about 3 or 4 different routes that everyone was assigned, and I was one of those drivers. And one of the days, like I said, about 2 weeks in, there was this woman, Marcia. And Marcia was crying all day. And she was, very sick. I believe she was schizophrenic, was her diagnosis. And she was hearing voices in her head that were telling her to kill herself. They kept telling her that she's not worthy, that she'll never amount to anything, and that she deserves to die. So she should have been hospitalized, but that wasn't my call at the time. The clinical team decided to address it with her all day, and by the time the end of the day came along, it was time for her to go home. Now, that route that she's on, that she gets dropped off at, it wasn't my route. But for some reason that day, a couple things happened that made it my route. One guy didn't show up to work, and then the girl who would have taken over that route had to leave early. So since there was a shorter route available, she took that route, and I took this route with Marcia that I had never taken before. So we load up the vans, and Marcia gets on the van, and I tell Marcia, just sit right behind me. I literally had her sit right behind me on the van. I even remember asking her, Marcia, what type of music do you like? And she told me like love songs. I still remember putting my Pandora on and putting love songs on for her. And she's still crying. And the last thing the clinical person said to me was, when you get to her house, tell her daughter that if she's still suicidal in a couple hours, to call 911. So we go and we leave, and Marcia's still crying behind me, and I get onto the highway, which is I-95 down here, and I'm going about 75 miles an hour on the highway, and suddenly I hear the van door in the back swing open. I hear it slide open in the back, and I quickly turn around, and I see that Marcia is going to dive out of the van and try to kill herself while we're on the highway. Now, mind you, the van is not just her on there. The van is full, completely full of people who are severely mentally ill. So everyone just sat there in shock and in horror. And for whatever reason, that my instinct, which is probably dumb, it was dangerous for me to do, but my instinct was to reach back and grab her by her waistline. So just picture, the van full of people who are all frightened. I'm trying to drive on the highway in a van, holding onto the wheel with one hand and holding onto Marcia with the other while she's hanging out of the van. I caught her right as she was hanging out of the van. And I don't know if it was the adrenaline, or I don't know what it was. I was able to pull her back into the van, and one of the other patients slid the door closed and put her hand over the lock for me. And while holding Marcia down, and she's punching me, she's hitting me, she's yelling at me, telling me, please, I want to die, I want to die. And I'm holding her down, and I'm trying to drive, and I was able to get us over to the shoulder. And I remember as soon as I hit the car in park, I jumped in the back seat with Marcia, and I kind of held her there, and I said, Marcia, you've got to stop. You've got to stop. We're all in danger here. You've got to stop. And she was just, please let me die. Please let me die. And I've never seen that look in someone's eye. Never. So anyway, I eventually asked Marcia a very important question that kind of changed things. I said, Marcia, are you trying to kill all of us, or are you just trying to kill yourself? And she said, no, I'm just trying to kill myself. And I said, then Marcia, please, you've got to stop. We are all going to die. We're all in danger here. So for whatever reason, she listened to me, and she went to the back of the van, and I had all the patients put their arms out so she couldn't get by, and I drove back to the center, and they were able to hospitalize her. Now, on the way home that day from work, I called somebody to tell them the story, and I was pretty shooken up about it. And I called to complain about how this could happen to me. And this guy's response was, "Thank God you were on that van. Thank God it was you. Thank God it wasn't those two other people that could have been driving, because the outcome may not have been the same. The van could have flipped. Marsha could be dead. I mean, there could be so much that could have gone wrong, and thank God it was you who was strong enough to hold her." And I will say Marsha, about 8 months later, was taking her medications properly and came to me to thank me for saving her life that day. The point of this story, and the reason I'm telling you this, is because everything in life happens for a reason. Every time someone calls out of work and you have to take over their shift, every red light you hit, every job you get turned down from, every school you get turned away from, every single thing in your life happens for a reason. And it may seem bad in the moment, but trust me, there is a greater scheme at play here. You just have to trust it. You may not be able to understand it right now, but trust me, you are exactly where you should be.